The priest who saw heavy metal music as the devil's work confronts Ozzy Osbourne. Birmingham's most conservative priest had viewed heavy metal music as the devil's work for 30 years. Every Sunday he cursed one name from his pulpit, Ozzy Osbourne, until that cold winter night, when the Prince of Darkness himself walked into the church garden and changed everything. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Voices of Darkness. Tell us where you're watching from. And one question, do you love Ozzy? For 3 decades, Father Thomas Mackenzie had stood at the pulpit of St. Mary's Church in Birmingham. He was the kind of man who believed in strict order, hymns in Latin, candles aligned perfectly, sermons that sounded like thunder. To him, rock, and especially heavy metal, wasn't just noise. It was temptation. And the one man he blamed most was Ozzy Osbourne. "The devil doesn't always come with horns," he would shout during sermons. "Sometimes he comes with a microphone." The congregation nodded. Parents whispered to their children, "Stay away from that music, from that man." They called Ozzy the poisoner of youth, and Father Thomas believed it with all his soul. It was December 1985, a night that would become legend in Birmingham. Snow was falling silently on the old brick streets. Street lamps flickered against the cold. Ozzy Osbourne had just left the studio. He'd been recording Shot in the Dark, but inside him, the same old storm raged. Tension with his producer, a fight with Sharon, the pull of old demons whispering for another drink. "Not tonight," he muttered, lighting a cigarette and walking through the empty street. His breath fogged in the air like ghost smoke. That's when he saw it, an old man sitting alone on the church steps, snow covering his shoulders. His face was buried in his hands, and in his lap, a small photograph. Something in that image, the way the man trembled, pulled Ozzy closer. He walked up slowly, boots crunching in the snow. "Are you all right, Father?" Ozzy asked softly. The man looked up. When the streetlight hit Ozzy's face, his breath caught. You're that Osbourne, the one who sings for the devil," he said, trembling. Ozzy's lips curved into a faint smile. He'd heard that line too many times. "Yeah, I'm Ozzy, but tonight I'm just someone who doesn't want to see another man freeze out here." The old man's name was Father Thomas Mackenzie, age 62. For 30 years he had served St. Mary's. He had buried friends, baptized babies, blessed marriages, and preached against everything Ozzy represented. But tonight, his enemy was not metal. It was grief. "My son, Michael," he said, holding the photograph. "He's in the hospital, overdose, 19 years old." "My only boy." Ozzy sat down beside him, brushing snow from the bench. "I know what that looks like," Ozzy whispered. "I've been there." Father Thomas frowned. "You? A man who made songs like Paranoid and Iron Man?" "Those songs lead kids astray." Ozzy shook his head gently. "Paranoid is about fighting mental illness, Father. Iron Man is about the pain of war and being forgotten. People hear the guitars, but they miss the cry." For the first time, Father Thomas didn't see the devil of Birmingham. He saw a tired man with kind eyes, haunted yet human. Snow kept falling as they talked. Hours passed. 2 men from different worlds, bound by pain and loss. Ozzy told him about his battles with addiction. The years he couldn't look at himself in the mirror. How music didn't create his demons. It helped him fight them. "When I sing, Father, I don't summon darkness. I throw it out of me." Father Thomas's hands trembled. For 30 years, he'd condemned a man he never knew. Tonight, the Prince of Darkness sounded more like a lost angel. "Perhaps," the priest said quietly, "I've been fighting the wrong enemy." The next morning, Father Thomas visited his son in the hospital. Michael was pale but conscious. Tubes ran from his arms like roots. "Michael," his father said, voice breaking. "I met Ozzy Osbourne last night." Michael laughed weakly. "You met Ozzy? And lightning didn't strike you?" They both smiled. For the first time in years, Father Thomas told his son what Ozzy said, that music can heal, that pain can create beauty. "Maybe," the priest said softly. "You didn't fall because of the music. Maybe because I never listened." Michael began to cry. "I just wanted you to see me, Dad, not just my sins." That conversation melted 30 years of ice. By the time Michael left the hospital, their relationship had changed forever. Months later, Birmingham buzzed with rumors. The city's most conservative priest was going to an Ozzy Osbourne concert. "Dad, are you sure?" Michael asked. "You'll be the only priest there." "Then maybe that's where I'm meant to be," Father Thomas replied. When he arrived backstage, security didn't know what to do. A priest in robes holding a rosary, waiting for Ozzy. When Ozzy saw him, he smiled wide. "Father Thomas, didn't expect to see you in my church." That night, the priest stood near the stage as "Mama, I'm Coming Home" echoed through the arena. He felt tears on his cheeks. The song wasn't demonic, it was devotion. During "Shot in the Dark," he heard Ozzy's pain. During "Close My Eyes Forever," he felt every parent's fear of loss. He looked around, families, teenagers, old couples, even a boy in a wheelchair, and thought, they're not lost souls. They're worshiping in their own way. After the concert, they shared tea backstage. "My music is dark, Father, because life is dark," Ozzy said. "But I sing to remind people they're not alone." "Then maybe," Father Thomas replied, "you're doing God's work without realizing it." From that night on, they became unlikely friends. Letters, postcards, hospital visits, each man learning from the other. Father Thomas began preaching new sermons. God reveals himself in many ways. Sometimes in a hymn, sometimes in a heavy metal song. Old parishioners complained. Some left, but new faces came, young ones. The church was alive again. Over the years, their friendship deepened. Ozzy supported local charities in Birmingham. Father Thomas visited drug rehabilitation centers, often using Ozzy's story as inspiration. He faced darkness, he would tell young addicts, but he didn't let it win. When Sharon was diagnosed with cancer, Father Thomas was there every week, praying by her side. "God tests us through pain," he'd say. "And sometimes pain writes the most beautiful songs," Ozzy replied. By the early 1990s, Birmingham had changed. Metal fans and churchgoers began sharing the same cafes. Same laughter. The newspaper ran a headline, "Priest and rock legend heal a city's soul." When Father Thomas fell ill in 2003, Ozzy was the first at his bedside. "Bring me your music," Father Thomas whispered. "I want to hear it one last time." Ozzy took out an acoustic guitar. His hands trembled slightly. He sang Dreamer. Tears rolled down the priest's cheeks. "I see no devil in that song," he whispered. "Because the real devil," Ozzy said softly, "isn't in music. It's in hate." At his funeral, Ozzy stood beside the coffin and sang Amazing Grace. The church was silent, metalheads and parishioners crying side by side. And as his voice echoed through the ancient walls of St. Mary's, Birmingham remembered that music and faith, though born from different fires, can light the same path. Years later, Michael Mackenzie still visits Ozzy when he tours Birmingham. He tells him, "You didn't just save my father's faith. You saved our family." And in the quiet corners of St. Mary's, a framed photo hangs. Father Thomas and Ozzy side by side smiling. The caption reads, "Understanding is louder than judgment." Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Voices of Darkness. Tell us where you're watching from and tell us, do you love Ozzy?